What's up, everybody? Alex here from Columbus. Welcome to episode 12 of What's on Tap, Vinyl Community Weekly Wrap. I got some stuff to drink. I got some stuff to show. This is where I just, every once in a while, I try to do it weekly, crack open a nice little beer and talk about a bunch of records, because I guess that is what my YouTube channel is. So I have some fun stuff that I picked up in Austin. I was just down in the Austin area visiting some family last week. And of course, I got a little bit of a record haul from some Austin record stores. And then some other bips and bobs, as they say. But like any other What's on Tap, we're going to start with a great beer. And I'm excited for this one because I kind of forgot this brewery existed, because for the longest time, they did not distribute outside of the city of Chicago. But now, basically everybody distributes everywhere, which that can be a conversation all on its own, because you could argue that as distribution has gone up and access has gone up, the beer has gotten worse. We're not here to discuss those things, but this is a shout out to the Chicagoland area, and the amazing brewery out there, Hop Butcher for the world. And this is Narragansett Ridge, not to be confused with Narragansett Lager, which I know is Mike MGK Boston's sort of world. But this is a Citra and Nectaron hopped double India Pale Ale, 8% alcohol by volume. It is 1 pint, 16 fluid ounces. So, I mean, Hop Butcher's been around for a little while now, and I think definitely specializes in the hazy IPA. So I'm expecting this to be a hazy IPA, double IPA, all that type of stuff. Usually they have some really great cover art. Cover art, that's how you know I'm talking about records. Usually they have some great can artwork. This one is okay. Actually, it's not great. Usually they do some really cool stuff. They do have, which is kind of cool here, they got, as you can tell, some tasting notes on the back here. They're talking about ripe peaches and dank pine, juicy tropical. Okay, I can do all those things. So let's get after it. It's Friday. It looks beautiful outside, but it's about 59 degrees, which for me is perfect. So yeah, here we are we're in Memorial Day weekend, and it's not even 60 degrees here in Columbus, but we're using our sweet, awesome, fancy beer glass, which for the people who indulge in the cannabinoid creatures, this looks like, well, it looks like a bomb. So let's get after it, crack this open, then we'll talk about some records, all that kind of stuff. See what we're dealing with here for the pour. Well, that's looking exactly how I was hoping it would. Sweet baby Ray's on fire. All righty then. Well, if that is not a hazy IPA, then you can slap my mama and call me Sally. Man, look at that. I mean, that's OJ. That is just straight, simply orange. That's amazing looking. Good. About 1.5 inches, 2 inches of head on top there in that fancy glass. Let's see what we can do here. See if we can get a nose through that head. Giggity. Oh, man. That smells so good. That smells like hazy IPAs of yesteryear. There is, like it says, I mean, there obviously the juice bomb is there. You know, call it peaches or whatever they say. But there is a kind of the dank note. There is that kind of bittery, danky quality on the back. I do not know what Nectaron hops are. Citra is obviously a very, very popular one. But yeah, I mean, that just smells amazing. I think in terms of balance, in terms of, when I say balance, what I mean by that is sort of that sweet, juicy, hazy, fruity sort of sweetness, but then also that kind of that bitter hop backbone that still gives it that dank quality. It smells amazing. It does have, when I say this, I mean it in the best way. Sometimes with these great danky IPAs, they have like almost like a wet sock type, better than a crusty sock type. God, I hate myself. You know what? Let's just get into this damn beer. All right. Hey, it looks great. It smells great. And let's just hope it tastes great. It's what they, God, I can't avoid it. Cheers, everybody. Oh, baby girl. Whoa. That is fantastic. Fantastic. Mouthfeel is great. Mouthfeel is there. Could be a little bit more pillowy. I mean, I'm really nitpicking here, right? When you talk about some of the best of the hazies all time, there is this very smooth, silky, pillowy mouthfeel with it. This one's just shy of that, but the flavor is fantastic. Huge, huge, huge fruit, almost smoothie type fruit sweetness quality. Really sweet up front, but then that actually dries quite well on the back with that bitter, hoppy quality. That's not, a lot of times with some of these hazy IPAs, they're so juicy, they're so hazy, they're so sweet. It's like a one and done sort of thing. With this balance, I mean, this is a type of beer that you could get into some trouble with because it's 8%. It doesn't taste like 8%. The alcohol's not there at all. But with that bitterness and balance, with that dry finish on the back, it leaves you wanting to go back for more, opposed to sitting there with a very wet finish, googity, and feeling like you need to take a step back. That is fantastic. Narragansett Ridge from Hop Butcher for the world. I love their logo too. We'll say logo's much better. Fantastic. If you can get Hop Butcher stuff and you're an IPA fan, seek it out, look for it. It's not going to be cheap. I will say it's not going to be cheap, but we collect records and drink craft beer, so not a whole lot of cheap hobbies here. Let's get into some records. So here's a bunch of stuff I picked up and or some listening points, all that kind of stuff. That's what we do here. So the first one off the bat, even before I get into the Austin stuff, but it is from Texas, is coming from David Bianco. Shockingly enough, now, I've known David. I think David kind of knows me. Well, he does know me. He sent me a record. But David, he's over at the Texas, Safe and Sound Texas Audio Excursion, I think. Very, very successful YouTube channel. He was celebrating 5,000 subscribers, I think, last weekend, maybe with a stream or something like that. He gets into the audiophile world, a lot of side-by-sides, A/B testing, all those different things. A very great YouTube channel. But I just joined in. I was on my computer, joined into the stream, and he was doing a giveaway. So he was just celebrating his 5,000 subscribers, and he was like, here's a list of records I'm giving away, and he spun a wheel for the people who were there, and I freaking won! So of the records that were there, I was like, you know what? I heard about that record, I remember streaming that record and liking it, and then just never really picked it up. So I was like, you know what? I'll take that record. It's free. It's for me, as you know. And this is going to be a throwback to 2022 in terms of sort of older bands doing newer stuff after a bit of a hiatus. This was a great comeback album, and it is the tipping point from Tears for Fears. Now, Americana Sam, I think you like this record a lot, which, this is not an Americana record. I'm just saying that because that's his YouTube channel. But this is a great record. Our boy Roland and Kurt are on their game. We'll say Roland be over here kind of rocking that Barry Gibb look a little bit. But this is a great record. I like Tears for Fears a lot. I think I appreciate them and respect them more than I like them. An interesting distinction in the sense of I think the level that I like them is not as much the level that I respect and appreciate the work that they've done. And a lot of that might have just been because it was so 80s sounding. It was just so 80s sounding. I know people talk about, 80s sound, all that type of stuff, but I've always had the utmost respect for what these guys do and their impact on music. And especially this sort of, art, pop, proggy pop art thing. And this is fantastic. I also love this album cover, by the way, but I'm also a cat man. There are cats. We love them. But this is cool. It sounds modern. It doesn't sound recycled. It sounds hip, but it also sounds like them. It doesn't sound like Shout. It's like, I don't know. I really like this record. If people have heard this record, let me know what you think. But for me, I was like, dang, to get that for free? Absolutely. That's amazing. So thank you, David. And I'm stoked to have that. Here, was hopefully my last RSD pickup. Yes, we're entering June now, and we're talking about RSD that was like back in April. But this was an RSD Europe release that no stores that I know of even got this record. So afterwards, I was kind of looking at it. It was on my Discogs want list. I was waiting for it to kind of hit the States. And then truthfully, I just bought it on eBay because it was coming from overseas, but the shipping was free and the price was good. So we did it. And I could not be happier to have it, but it is Stiv Baiters and Pop Goes the Weasel. So I've talked about Stiv Baiters a lot on my channel. Stiv Baiters, most known for being the front man of the Dead Boys, one of the most classic punk bands. That's right. From the Cleveland / Akron / Youngstown area. But after the Dead Boys, Stiv went on and did a couple, or at least one solo record on Bomp Records, where he partnered with Frank Sesich for all the songwriting. Frank Sesich from Blue Ash, a classic power pop band from Ohio, who I've actually had on my channel, and just an amazing power pop writer, songwriter, etc. And so this is a collection, a comp, that is probably geared towards the completist, right? There are some singles on here that were released as 45, so maybe some different mixes. There are some demos on here. There are some live recordings that sound like they were recorded out of a boot out of my ass. Like this is not an audiophile type recording. It does say, I'll go quick on the hype sticker here. After the Dead Boys, American punk legend Stiv Baiters embarked on a musical journey that saw him touch upon power pop during a brief solo career. Following our recent reissue of Baiters' classic Disconnected, this compilation of rarities comprises alternative takes, B-sides, and live recordings from this era, where his music was more aligned with 60s power pop than the vicious punk rock that he was known for. So, a very, very cool record. There are the guys on the back there featuring Stiv and Frank, and I think they had Jimmy Zero maybe from the Dead Boys as well on here. But yeah, I'm really pumped to have this. I'm kind of a completist, more so for things that Frank was on than Stiv per se, but it's funny. I mean, if you like power pop, check out the Stiv Baiters solo stuff. Like, it is outstanding, and just pumped to have that. Okay, one more sort of record before I get into the Austin record stuff. So this actually just came in the mail like 20 minutes ago, and I snagged it, and I don't know about you all, this is why when collecting and listening, like, the well never ends, right? Like, we are just continuing to dig ourselves a bigger and bigger hole because we find something that we love, and we love it, and then we have to go back and be like, well, where did that come from? Where did he come from? Like, all these different things. And this is a cool story of like, wait, is that where that band came from? I did not pay a lot for this. I think I paid $10 for this, and then, it was another like $6 on shipping. So one of my favorite bands, we all have a million favorite bands, but I think one of my favorite, most well-respected bands from the 90s was Jellyfish. They put out 2 amazing records in 1990 and then 92 or 93, and then they sort of broke up, and a lot of people went and did their own sort of projects. But before Jellyfish, Roger Manning, as well as Andy Sturmer, who was the voice of Jellyfish, were in a band called Beatnick Beach. This was a San Francisco pop band, essentially. This record, the self-titled, this was their second record that came out on Atlantic in 1988. They released an album prior to this that was on a independent San Francisco label, I think Industrial Records maybe. Roger Manning is not on that record. Roger Manning is on this record. So Roger Manning would play keyboards and really be responsible for a lot of the music in Jellyfish. And then Andy Sturmer, who was the drummer, was sort of the front man for Jellyfish. Lead vocals, lyricist, etc. for Jellyfish. And so as soon as you put this on, Andy's got a very, very distinct voice. And so this was really cool. I mean, this is the band that the Jellyfish guys were in before Jellyfish. Not an expensive record. What was cool about this, as you can kind of see, this is actually still sealed. So, I mean, this is maybe like an $8 to $12 record or something like that. It's not an expensive record, but this is still sealed with the hype sticker, which is cool. Of course, I'm going to open it so I can listen to it. let's just have a moment to talk about that. But it's cool stuff. It's not as pristine and sort of perfect as Jellyfish is, but you can definitely see where they're going. And Andy was just a hell of a songwriter, especially from the drumming standpoint. So yeah, Beatnick Beach on Atlantic Records, 1988, featuring Roger Manning and Andy Sturmer. They would break up this year after this record and start Jellyfish. So there is your fun fact. Okay, I got 5 records, I think, from Austin, and including one kind of Grail asterisk. Okay, and I'm recognizing too that all of these records that I'm showing there's like 5 records that are 5 completely different genres, but that's what we do here. So where do you start when you go to Austin and you're Alex and you're checking out these record stores? Well, the first place I went to was Waterloo. Waterloo Records is wow, slow your fucking face down. Waterloo Records is probably the most well-known record store in Austin. And it's a great store. I will say though, it is definitely more geared towards new vinyl buyers, right? And for me, I'm not much of a new vinyl buyer. I buy new records, but of course, like I like digging, I like finding new stuff, all that type of stuff. So amazing new selection. But for used stuff, not as much. So the first place we went was Waterloo, and I found this record, and it is the technical death metal record, the second album from Blood Incantation, Hidden History of the Human Race. So yes, Blood Incantation, a technical progressive death metal band that has some spacey ambient type influences here and there, although I will say this is pretty much just in your face technical progressive death metal. They had an album that came out last year that blew a lot of people away called Absolute Elsewhere, including me. And I said, dang, I got to go back into the catalog. I'm pretty picky and choosy with my death metal. There's not a lot that I love. I don't gravitate towards it, but if the right band just grabs me by the tit the right way, I get into it. And so this band for sure, Blood Incantation, was one of those bands. So this was their second album that came out, I don't know, 2019 maybe. And then they released obviously 2 since then. Great artwork. This is from a book, I believe, back from like the 50s or 60s. But very cool stuff. I don't see this record out much, although I knew, of course, like after buying it, that it just recently got reissued. Funny enough, though, I've had a hard time finding it in Discogs because there's a million variants, but a very, very cool clear with green, purple splatter, all the type of stuff. Cool. A gatefold. So yeah, was super pumped to have Blood Incantation. Now, apparently the record between this one and Absolute Elsewhere, I think it's called Time Wave Zero. Apparently that's like an ambient record. Like, I guess there's not really a whole lot of death metal on there at all. So of course I want that. Cheers. God, that's so fucking good. Okay. Well, I've been talking about this artist a lot. He's got a lot of records. I don't have all of them because that's going to take a while and it's going to be a lot of money. But I had not seen this one out at my local shops nor online. And I saw it there and it was on sale. I think it was like not 50, it was like maybe like 30% off. So I grabbed it. I will be doing a video soon with a particular Australian that I can't wait for, talking about this artist. But it's Nick Cave, of course, and the Bad Seeds. I posted a video a couple weeks ago about seeing Nick Cave live. Blew my little coconuts off my dick. And since then, I've just been on like a Nick Cave deep dive. Now, this is Nocturama. This came out in 2003. I think this was maybe 2 or 3 records after Boatman's Call. And still kind of finds himself in that less aggressive and more, somebody mentioned in a comment, more introspective Nick Cave, which I have grown to love all of this stuff. But certainly, this is an area that was my introduction to Nick, was the more singer-songwriter, more mellow, more sad type stuff. So I understand this record doesn't show up as a favorite for a lot of people. In fact, when I was asking for recommendations, I don't think anybody mentioned this one, but I had streamed it before, really connected with it, again, just because of the style of it. And I really like it. So if you do, or if you're unsure maybe about the Nick Cave thing, and you don't know about the more aggressive post-punky type stuff, this is a pretty cool place to start. Yeah, Nocturama from 2003 from Nick Cave and them Bad Apple Seeds. Okay. Then, so those were the two I got at Waterloo. Then I went to just one other place that had, in my opinion, an amazing used selection. I could have been there for probably another hour, but wanted to be respectful of the people I was with. Great used selection, but it's called End of an Ear in downtown, or in some neighborhood of Austin. A very cool place. And I picked up 3 records there, including a little bit of a whale. So, first and foremost, I say this all the time. First places I go when I am out looking around in a record shop of a different place that's not in Ohio, I look for Ohio artists. Specifically for me, I will usually beeline straight to the jazz section and look at the Roland Kirk section. I see it's from Columbus, and they had just what I was kind of looking for as I continue to build out the collection, and that is I Talk with the Spirits. So this is Roland Kirk, not Roland Kirk. So anything that just has Roland Kirk on it was probably pre-1969. Anything with Roland Kirk was post-1969. This came out in 1965 on Limelight Records. So kind of an interesting label there. I believe they were a subsidiary and or just distributed by Mercury Records at the time. But yeah, Roland Kirk, multi-instrumentalist. This is not your casual hard bop, put on a cool Miles record or put on your Cannonball Adderley. This is a little bit more out there. He's playing some sax, he's playing some flute, he's playing some oboe, some different stuff. But this is a cool record right in the middle of his heyday. I feel like this mid-60s period is just fantastic. But the big kind of cool part of this for the rock and roll fans is that side one kicks off with Serenade to a Cuckoo, which was covered by Jethro Tull on their first record. This was Ian Anderson was a huge fan of Roland Kirk and the way that he played flute as well as all instruments, and so they actually covered Serenade to a Cuckoo on there. So yeah, very cool to have this. I've never seen this locally, so of course you go somewhere else and you find it, and it was a good price because Roland Kirk records are not expensive. Here was a cool find. A while ago I was talking about some compilation records and kind of talked about how some labels will do like the twofer later in a band's career, right? So maybe the band had like a couple of their first couple records were not commercial at all, and then 6 years later they blew up, so then the label's like, oh, we should reissue those first 2 records as a twofers because now everybody loves them. And this band never really blew up, but these 2 records are very difficult to find, they're very expensive. There are plenty of reissues available for, $25-30. So it's not like they're that rare. But I did not know that this comp twofer existed, and so I'm just really happy for it. Happy for myself that I got it. But it is the Pretty Things, Real Pretty. So I believe this was a comp that came out in 1976, and so what is that, like, Silk Torpedo type time, I think, maybe. Real Pretty is the name of the comp, but it's a twofer with SF Sorrow and Parachute. Pretty Things, they kind of started as like almost Rolling Stone contemporaries, very kind of bluesy R&B, type garagey type stuff. As they entered the later 60s, became a lot more songwriter influence, heavily influenced by later era Beatles. And so in 1968, 1969, they sort of found themselves in this cool area of psychedelia, pop, artsy, kind of proggy type world, and they released 2 incredible albums, SF Sorrow in 1968 and then Parachute in 1969, which went on to all this acclaim. Again, really difficult records to find originals of. There are plenty of reissues available. I have an early pressing of Parachute, but I did not have SF Sorrow. And this was super cheap. I think I paid maybe $12 for this. That includes both of them. The claim to fame or whatever for SF Sorrow was that people will claim this was like the first rock opera officially. So this predates Tommy by a year from The Who. And it's cool stuff. Nothing really sounds like the Pretty Things of that era. Again, that kind of psychedelic, artsy, poppy type stuff. So yeah, if you're interested in those 2 records, this is a comp that is out there. Maybe feel free to search it out or throw it on your Discogs want list or whatever it is. Because again, it gets you both of those records for a super cheap price. So there's your gatefold, all that good stuff. So yeah. And then there was a record on the wall. This is the sort of semi-grail, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so we've gone from death metal to Nick Cave to some jazz to pretty things. Let's go to early mid-2000s psychedelic pop weird stuff. Usually outside of my comfort zone, but this is the sweet spot for me for this band. But that is the Flaming Lips at War with the Mystics. So Flaming Lips, band from Tulsa, I think, Oklahoma band. Throughout the late 80s and most of the 90s were kind of like a noisy, garagey, psych weird band. They had that big hit about using jelly or something else. But for me, the sweet spot with this band is this trio of albums that they put together: The Soft Bulletin, Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots, and then At War with the Mystics. Soft Bulletin and Yoshimi have been reissued a gazillion times. You can find them on any website ever. I think their original record came out in the early to mid 2000s, 2006 maybe. And I think the only official reissue of it was through Vinyl Me Please, Rest in Peace, before Vinyl Me Please became sort of the shat show that they became. Maybe it's due for a reissue sometime soon. I don't know, but this was always sort of out there. It's really difficult to find. And so it was on the wall. It was a decent price, so I snagged it. And again, that trio for me is perfect in that sort of psychedelic-y, poppy, weird, but still accessible type world. So yeah, you know, you get the classics on here, like the Yeah, Yeah, Yeah song, My Cosmic Autumn Rebellion, Pompeii Am Goddard Dameron. Classics indeed. So yeah, very cool to have this. It's been something on my want list for a long time, and so I'm glad I have it. And last, I'm showing this because this is what I'm digging into tonight. It's Friday night. I'm going to keep on drinking these beers. I'm going to throw on a couple of live records, and this is going to be the first one up because this guy's coming to Columbus this summer, and I could not be more excited for it. But it is the artist Neil Francis, and this is Francis Comes Alive. Yes, a little nod to Frampton Comes Alive. This is a dope double live record that came out a couple years ago on ATO Records. Neil Francis started as a coal miner. He was one of the original artists signed to Karma Chief. His first record's on Karma Chief, and then he jumped to ATO Records and put out a couple of great records. This is some old school, soulful, funk, rock and roll, man. I mean, that's just the best way to put it. This was a record that was put together all analog from a live show he did at the Thalia, Chicago, people help me out. Thalia Hall in Chicago a couple of years ago, where he put together like a whole band, horn players, background singers, the whole bit. So yeah, some great packaging here for sure. And yeah, this is dope. I mean, all of his records are great, but to me, like the live experience with Neil Francis is the best. Now, do not get this confused with the like synth pop band called Neil Francis. It's a different spelling, same name. Don't ask me questions I don't know the answer to. Anyway, that's what we're ripping on tonight, and we're going to keep drinking this good beer. Thanks for watching and sticking out with this almost 30-minute video. I appreciate it more than you could possibly imagine. Take care of yourselves and each other. We will see you on the next one. So long, boners. Bye now.